here. So I kind of have divided this kind of explanation in what will be rights and the responsibilities of being a collaborator on the project. And I should confess that some of these, I mean, this is the first time you are the first cohort, let's say, of people that want to be collaborators. We had also program similar trainings in regional areas. So we had one in Brazil, one in Fiji, one in India. They all have been canceled so far, and maybe we might do them remotely, or we will see how we move with that. But what I'm trying to say with that is that some of the things maybe are some of the questions that you might raise, are things that we might have not think of before, but we are happy to think them with you or to see what's the best option, because we really are interested in this idea of a network and of collaborations, right? So the third part will be the rights, or what does it gives you to be a collaborator with us. And there are two important things here. One is this idea of all the training, all the support that we give you, and all the materials that we are generating, the protocols for data collection. Of course, there are different levels, depending on where you are in your career stage, that interests you more or less. Maybe for Yorgos or Andre, who are professors, right? I mean, they kind of like have their own methods, no? But for some of the master students and PhD students that we have work, and also in universities in the global south, the structured way of data collection that we have provide, it's really something that they value a lot. Because we have designed the data collection in this very modular way, in which just by adding your own research question, only one or two research questions to the whole design that we are providing, helps you to, allows you to have your master thesis or even your dissertation written, right? Because the methods are very modular. For example, there is this one student that this is using the survey data, just by adding one question, which is she's working in the same cultural area, but it's in two different countries. So just by adding this issue of in which country are you, this question of in which country are you, she's able to kind of like analyze differences that are bring by different political situations, differences in perceptions of climate change in different countries. So just to say that this kind of like the method is something that we bring to you guys, and then if you join the LICCI project, there is all this other accompanying that I was saying, right, in how you use the methods and helping to navigate how you apply them in the field, etc. So these trainings, I think it's something that more valuable for some than for others, but it's important to remark. The other thing is all this discussion about publications, and Petra has sent you the publication policies that we have. This is something that we have been thinking throughout there has been many discussions about that, because we want both to recognize everybody and be inclusive, but also to maintain fairness, in the sense that some people are putting a lot of energy on this, and that's not the same for everybody. So basically, the main idea on these publications policies is that data belong to the person who collect the data. So any one of you who are collecting, like you take this method, you apply them and collect data, you are free to use it in any way you want, right? And none of the LICCI team will publish any of your data alone. So I cannot take, let's say, Maria's data on the fisheries in Peru and make an article with that. That will be against our publication policies. Only Maria can do that, with or without us. That's really up to her, or she can use it in any way. So you keep always ownership on your case study, and this is important to say. What we get is this aggregated data, right? So the LICCI team will only publish data that it's aggregated. Well, unless you decide that you don't want to do anything with your data and you give it to us, right? But I mean, that's not the that's not the main thing that's going to happen. What we want is to generate a network in which collaborators and partners exploit the details of the case study that they know, and we are able to do some level of aggregation data. Now, when anyone on the LICCI team decides, let's say I decide to do a work on fisheries that uses some of the data of the fisheries group. Well, I will not, because Sarah will do it, but imagine. In that case, I will invite, whoever leads a paper using data from any partner or collaborator has to invite anyone that from which the data is being used. And then if that person actually wants to collaborate and actually does the work that it's required in the development of the paper, will be an author. So basically, the idea is that you keep your data and that we invite you to any publication that we will do using your data. And maybe if there are questions or issues, we can actually, we can talk more about that with your questions. Then the other point will be the responsibilities. So in that case, one very important thing is this code of ethics. Oh, sorry, I forgot to. This is what I was planning. So the responsibility, of course, the first responsibility is to collect the data following the protocol. And I think we have emphasized the importance of this kind of like homogeneity in following the protocol to be able to make a single claim or make a united voice on what we want to express, right? And the other responsibility that is on your side is this issue that you should be careful with your own and with participants' health and security. And this seems a little bit idiot, but it's not, particularly in the times we are living now. For example, for our informants, many of them have restrictions to access indigenous people or some areas because of this COVID pandemics. This is an extreme case, but in any case, none of this data should be collected, putting anyone at risk. But I'm saying that because now it's particularly important not to try to push too hard to go to the field when there are security issues. It's also your responsibility to obtain research permits, because there is like a complexity of case studies that we cannot really manage. And some people work with protected area, and then you need a permit from the national protected area. Some people work with indigenous people and need whatever, or some people work in countries that require a visa for entry for research. So this is kind of like in your plate to obtain the research permits that are required to collect the data. And then the last point and the last responsibility is to follow the code of ethics and the data management plan. And here I will say that this is a project funded by the European Research Council, and there is very strict rules. So we apply this code of ethics. That it's quite standard. It's nothing like completely, strange, no? But the main point here is that this issue of respect, but also the issue of permissions, right? So you cannot just get data if you don't have the authorization of whatever indigenous authority or like I mean, in the case of Europe, maybe it's not the case, no, but if you're working with fisher communities, if there is like an organization that where all the fishermen are affiliated, you wanna ask for permission to whatever, the visas, no? And then this free prior informed consent. So before you conduct any interview and any focus group discussion, you need to explain to participants what is it that you are doing, what are the risks for them to participate, and they can stop at any point, right? And how are we going to use the data? And do they want us to use the data in such and such way? No? So this is quite standard, but you need to collect the free prior informed consent. Now, for partners, we require that they send them to us, but not for you, right? But we are just kind of like telling you that this is, I mean, you all work in institutions that have these ethic committees, and probably you have to do those things anyhow, no? But just as a reminder that this is your responsibility to actually conduct this, I mean, or obtains this consent of people. And if anyone has doubts on how this is done, or if they want the forms, we have forms for oral consent, written consent, and we are happy to share them with you. And then the last point of the last responsibility is this issue of how do we manage the data. So again, this data that we are collecting cannot be like what Ramin was saying, no? You cannot just store this data in Google and leave it there, or do the collect personal data of people and just have it sent by email or something, no? So that's why we have all these like all these protocols for sending the data, so it's secure. And this is something that that the European Union requires, no? And we need to stay with that. And I think these are the questions, I mean, the presentation I had. And then maybe now we can